Tonight, a fierce legal battle is brewing after a special prosecutor rejected a High Court ruling that strips the office of its power to prosecute cases without the authorization of the Attorney General, vowing to fight until the decision is overturned.
Like the attack of Israel and United States of America against Iran. It's coordinated. That's a coordinated attack.
Okay.
But only the Supreme Court can deal with
bring
the matter.
clarity
And
to this
we hope that the Supreme Court will expedite action to settle this matter once and for all.
We have details as legal heavyweight clash over whether the High Court has the authority to suspend the powers of the Special Prosecutor. More coming up on Top Story shortly here on Joy 99.7 FM. Also live on Love 99.5 in Kumasi, on ATL 100.5 in Cape Coast, on Radio Max in Takrady, and several of our affiliates across the country. My name is Samuel Kojo. Brace. This is brought to us by Telecel, Connecting Energies, Holy Insecticide Spray and Coil, Enjoy Holy Sleep, and also by Short Pension Trust. Into the future with you. Well, tonight, the Office of the Special Prosecutor says it will challenge a High Court ruling that bars it from initiating criminal prosecutions without authorization from the Attorney General. The decision has triggered a fierce legal clash over the independence of the anti-graft body. In a decision, High Court Judge Justice Nyante ruled that the Special Prosecutor cannot initiate criminal prosecutions without the express authorization of the Attorney General. Now, that's a position that, if upheld by the Supreme Court, could effectively ground the OSP's prosecutorial mandate. The ruling comes at a time when the very powers of the Special Prosecutor are already under challenge at the Supreme Court, with a private legal practitioner and the Attorney General arguing that Parliament may have overstepped by creating a parallel prosecutorial body outside the Attorney General's office. My colleague Kweku Asante, who is with our Legal Affairs Desk, joins me in studio with more details. Kweku, take us through what happened in court today. There's a ruling from the Criminal Division of the High Court that stayed the criminal trial in question.
Well, yes, in fact, you are getting a lot more details from some publications that have now been made by the Special Prosecutor. So this matter concerns the OSP's prosecution of Issa Seidu and three others. In fact, that is the Republic versus Issa Seidu and three others.
It's a case that is currently ongoing.
Yes, it is actually widely referred to as the Rice Scandal case. That is the name that has been given to this case generally. So the Criminal Division of the High Court is originally the court that is seized with the matter. That is actually overseeing the prosecution of these four people. And there was an application made by lawyers of the accused persons that sought to strike out the case on, among other things, grounds that a special prosecutor did not have the power to initiate those prosecutions without the express say-so of the Attorney General. And as we know now, the judge in this matter did not acquiesce to that demand. And in fact, he actually adjourned proceedings in that matter to a later date because of the current issues having to do with the OSP's prosecutorial mandate that is currently before the Supreme Court. So that judge took the view that the Supreme Court should first determine whether or not the Supreme Parliament was constitutionally clothed with the power to actually create the special prosecutor and hive off part of the prosecutorial power of the AG and give it to the OSP. And so that matter is ongoing. The Criminal Division of the High Court took the view that that matter should go on when the Supreme Court decide, and ultimately they decide that the OSP cannot prosecute without the Attorney General's blessings of any sort, then it will be applied to the current case. So that is the decision that has now been taken by the Criminal Division. But another judge has taken a different position. Yeah. That is General Jurisdiction 10 of the High Court, presided over by Justice Nyante. So as we understand, these people who were being prosecuted by the OSP, who had sought but failed to get the Criminal Division to hold their trial or to actually strike out the charges against them, then filed a separate action at the High Court, General Jurisdiction 10, But this time around, the judge actually agreed with them because according to the judge's view, if you look at the relevant provisions, so let me read the relevant provisions of the OSP Act. It says that the OSP, and let me read the full part. It says, Section 4.2, subject to Clause 4 of Article 88 of the Constitution, the office shall, for the purpose of this Act, be authorized by the Attorney General to initiate and conduct the prosecution of corruption and corruption-related offenses. Okay. The judge's view is that, as it relates to this particular case, the OSP has not showed that he has been given authorization by the Attorney General to prosecute that cases, and so that case cannot go. And so the view of the judge is that that case should not be taken over by the Attorney General, and that the OSP lacks prosecutorial powers, especially if they do not have the say-so of the Attorney General to proceed.
Now, we now do know that the OSP is pushing back strongly against this. Now, what are its timelines or immediate next steps, and could this battle ultimately be settled at the Supreme Court?
Well, the OSP says in this strongly worded statement that it is taking steps to, quote, quickly overturn the decision of the General Jurisdiction Court, since the High Court does not have the jurisdiction to, in effect, strike down parts of an act of Parliament as unconstitutional. It is only the Supreme Court which can strike down parts of an act of Parliament as unconstitutional. We must, however, say that the High Court judge did not purport to strike down parts of the OSP Act. It just said that if you look at Section 4, you need authorization of the Attorney General, and in his reading, the OSP has not been able to prove that he has been given the powers to prosecute this case, and it will not be able to do so. And the OSP continued to say that it firmly assures the public that all criminal prosecution it has commenced before the courts, and all the criminal prosecutions it is about to commence before the courts remain valid and will proceed based on its mandate under the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act, which remains valid and in force as the matter has not been decided by the Supreme Court. And so, obviously, the OSP is waiting for this particular matter that's currently before the court, and we know that at the end of this month there will be a hearing on this. We do not know when exactly the Supreme Court will finally pass a verdict. It could take months, sometimes even years, given the history of constitutional actions at the Supreme Court. It could also be expedited, but we know that the petition, the plaintiff in that case has taken a view that the OSP could not have been given powers that is hived off from the Attorney General. The AG, we know, we've done on Top Story, agrees with some of the views that has been held by the plaintiff. The OSP, as we know, is not a party to that case, because in its application for joinder, the court threw out that application and said that because this is a constitutional action and they are only challenging the power of Parliament to make a law, the OSP is not a necessary party, and the court can be able to dispose of the case without them. We do not know when exactly that will happen, but the cascading effect is that a lot of people who are being prosecuted by the OSP will always go to the court and refer the court to the matters that are currently pending before the Supreme Court, and ask for the matters to be put on hold until that determination, which literally grinds the OSP to a certain halt up until the court determines these matters.
Grateful to you, Kweku Asante. Now, former MP for Tamale Central, Inusa Fuseni, who served on the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament when the OSP Act was passed, insists the High Court judge lacked the jurisdiction to make such far-reaching orders.
My brother and friend, Professor Remo Atumka, had warned us that this bill, even if it succeeded in manifesting itself in the form of a law, would not survive constitutional scrutiny in the Supreme Court. And so we must pat ourselves in the back that it has come to the fore 80 years after its existence. At least we have gotten 8 years. If it were a child, it would be attending school by now. So yes, there has been no achievement, but we have always known that the act can be subject to a barrage of attacks at the Supreme Court.
Okay.
What is happening gives an impression that there is a coordinated attack, like the attack of Israel and United States of America against Iran. It's coordinated. It's a coordinated attack.
Okay.
But only the Supreme Court can deal with
bring
the matter.
clarity to this
we hope that the Supreme Court will expedite action to settle this matter once and for all.
But private legal practitioner Martin Pebu argues that the matter ultimately, rest with the Supreme Court, which must provide a final and authoritative decision on this particular matter, interpretation on whether the OSP can independently prosecute cases or not. Listen to him.
Even though the decision is not based on the undercurrents of this case, what I can tell you is that if the lawyers involved in this case would tell you the undercurrent in terms of the people pushing that prosecution, people who are close to the special prosecutor, special interest in that case, I'll tell you that it's justice that the High Court has stopped this case. If you hear the undercurrent, I'm not the lawyers, I don't want to be the one to put that on air, but I can tell you that if you hear the undercurrent in this rice scandal case, the special interest behind this prosecution, those who are pushing for its prosecution, etc. I tell you that you even wish that the Office of Special Prosecutor is closed down immediately, not just the decision that the judge gave. If you hear the full story, you say that, look, let's just lock up this Office of Special Prosecutor. This is not the only case. Many cases, the Appiah case, you see how he dribbled us. Different cases. When you hear the things, you're like, what did we do? So sometimes I hear people, if you really hear what's going on the ground, the Appiah case, if you look at the kind of evidence we had, and yet they will say, no, don't investigate this, do only this part. And then long story short, you see the man was returned to the Appiah, etc. You will say we should close down that office in 3 seconds. All right? So for me, because of what I've heard about the undercurrents, the decision is sweet, even though it's not the final decision. It's the Supreme Court that will finally decide. And, for Supreme Court, they may look at the wider public policy implications. We all support the office. Let me emphasize this strongly. Okay. I support the existence of the office. But where we all got it wrong is that I think we just thought that by creating that office, automatically everybody who comes to head that office will be an angel. That is where our problem is. We thought by saying Office of Special Prosecutor, any person we choose, even when there are glaring conflicts of interest, like how Gabriel Chidako helped to get Kikeja being appointed for Fredami and could put their friend there. We just think that, by the time he enters the office, now he can face them. He entered the office and he allowed the lawyer to run. Many other cases that involve things that we cannot stay on air. So I'm telling you, people who know this case well, they say finally justice has been served. Yes.
This is still top story. Now, time for us to bring in Professor Kojo Appiah. He's Professor of International Law, University of Ghana, and a human rights lawyer. Also, John Dako is Legal Counsel, Minority Caucus in Parliament, and MP for Swami. Let me start with you, John Dako. What could be the possible impact of this ruling?
Well, thank you to your listeners. Obviously, it weakens our resolve to fight corruption, especially from an independent point of view. And you know that the Attorney General is an appointee of a president whose tenure is basically at the mercy of the president. The tenure of the Office of Special Prosecutor or the Special Prosecutor is secured and it cannot be removed at will. And so that security of tenure actually gives the Special Prosecutor the independence to go after any and everybody without fear of being removed by a political appointee. I think that is the main distinction here between the Office of the Special Prosecutor and the Office of the Attorney General. Whereas in the case of the Attorney General acts at the whims and caprices of the executive presidency, and that he can be removed at any time if he doesn't do the bidding of the president. In the case of the OSP, he has security of tenure, and so he can independently work and bring action against all the political appointees who engage in corruption and corruption-related issues. And so the reason why this act was passed was to grant that independence so that we as a country can fight corruption head on.
But
Mr.
Naku, sorry, but that's
right now you cannot bring any action independently. You have to go to this political appointee who may tell you that no, don't bring this action against this NDC appointee. No, this action against this person, because then the AG becomes a gatekeeper of who can be brought before justice if the person commits an offense. And so that is the danger, immediate danger that I see. That we as a people, we don't seem to be ready to fight the corruption that we all claim we want to fight.
Okay, Mr. Rako, if you can hear me, kindly speak up a bit for me. But isn't the judge here just enforcing what the Act says? Because if you look at 4.2, it says subject to clause 4 of Article 88 of the Constitution, the office shall, and this is a command, for the purposes of this Act, be authorized by the Attorney General to initiate and conduct the prosecution of corruption and corruption-related offenses. It's a command here. Is it wrong for anyone to say that?
I think that the argument on this has been that by the setup of the OSP office, the office has already been authorized, and that you don't need day-to-day authorization from the AG to go and prosecute an action. Okay, so that it is one-time authorization. Otherwise, if you interpret this to mean that for every criminal case you want to prosecute, you need to go to the AG for clearance, that would be so absurd and it would defeat the purpose of the independence of the OSP, and that it will make their work so tedious. So let us not just read this 4.2 out of the vacuum. It is being read because you see when they passed this law, this question was asked, and the interpretation that I believe at the time which was given was that there's a one-time authorization that has been given by the mere setup of the office. Because you see, because of 88.4, they couldn't have gone around this and set up an independent office to bring an action against people. What they had to do was to give a one-time authorization from the Office of Attorney General to the OSP. So we need to understand the difference. Okay. If you read it carefully, and if you give me time, let me just read it again. That's subject to clause 4 of Article 88. The office shall, for the purpose of this act, be authorized by the Attorney General to initiate and conduct the prosecution of corruption and corruption. So, for all this while, that authorization has been given. And that is a one-time authorization that doesn't need a repetition. So, imagine this is interpreted to mean that at every time you need to go to the AG's office. Imagine the kind of problem the Office of Special Prosecutor is going to have. That any prosecution needs to write and then get a response. It will slow down their work. It will make their work tedious. This was not the intention of Parliament when this law was made. Okay.
Let me bring in Professor Kojo Appiah. Prof, I'm grateful to you for joining us. For you, what do you think, or how can we cure what's happening now?
Thanks for having me, Kojo. Yes, I think that to cure this matter, we have to. The OSP has said it is going to appeal, which is good. And definitely, it has to. But I think we also have the Supreme Court. We are awaiting a decision from the Supreme Court with regards to the interpretation as to whether it has the power to amend the law passed by the Parliament. So at the end of the day, I think these are the two options here that we have. Probably during the appeal, if the case goes to the Supreme Court, there's already an existing case there, so maybe the case can be consolidated if they see that is possible. And so that is what the OSP definitely should do. And I also feel that I think that the OSP can ask to be joined to the current case, because it has become obvious that the Attorney General is not in a position or is siding with the party that has brought the
applicant.
case before the court. So in that case, there's precedent to suggest that the Attorney General would want to say that this particular office, which is supposed to help my case, is not ready to help me. So at the end of the day, the case may go against me. So the OSP also can fight the battle before the Supreme Court by being asked to be joined so that it can take up that matter on its own.
Now, per this ruling, what will be the impact on the cases that the OSP is prosecuting? Yesterday, it listed some cases on its page on Facebook. Those cases, if I am a party to it, by this ruling, can I then challenge his authority to prosecute me?
That is what the court seems to say, and it's very unfortunate if that becomes the case, because it's going to reverse a lot of the good work that the OSP has done, and it's also going to affect other cases, even like the Oforiatta case and so on, because all these were initiated by the OSP, and certainly it's going to create a mess. So that decision definitely cannot stand, and I think that the OSP has indicated that it's going to fight it, and that we should support the OSP in doing that, because otherwise the impact on the decisions and actions taken by the OSP would certainly draw us back in our anti-corruption fight.
Okay.
I have one point, just a little point
okay.
to make on Prof's last point, if I may.
You can.
I believe that the cases in the other high courts can go on, because you see, the high court that made the decision, its decision is not binding on the other high courts. They are courts of coordinate jurisdiction. So one high court judge made the provision in the way I am interpreting it to mean that there's a one-time authorization which has already been given by the setup of the office, and another high court judge can say that you have to go at any time. And so as long as you don't hold a letter from the Office of Attorney General authorizing you, then it means that you are breaching your own law. They are courts of coordinate jurisdictions, and so they can make all these different interpretations. It is only the Supreme Court which decision is binding on all the courts. So if the Supreme Court now comes out to say that the act violates the Constitution, then I believe that all the courts will be bound by the decision of the court. But as it stands now, in my view, the cases in all the other courts, the high courts, can effectively go on unless somebody raises another issue as to the interpretation of the 4-2, and then that high court judge will make its decision. And that high court judge can deviate completely from this high court judge. And their court of coordinate jurisdiction, the decision of one doesn't bind the other. It is only the high court, the higher court, either the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court, that will bind the lower court. So I just wanted to add that to what Prof said.
Looking at what there's some sort of misunderstanding, right? How much time do we have that the Supreme Court should look at coming in to give us the clarity going forward?
Well, there's already a case before the Supreme Court.
I know of that case. Is the reason I'm asking how much time must the Supreme Court look at it to clarify the issues surrounding the OSP?
Look, as for the Supreme Court, they work with their own timelines. But I think that the rate at which this thing is going to come up, it will be important if the Supreme Court made a final determination of this matter as early as possible. I believe that in the case, you see, this whole thing, sometimes I don't always want to bring the politics in it, but it is obvious that this administration doesn't want this office to function the way it is functioning. It is obvious that this administration doesn't want an independent prosecutor to be bringing cases against its appointees. It is obvious, and that is why Semsai Jr. and his firm brought this action before the Supreme Court, and Semsai and the Attorney General say, we agree with you. We believe that this Office of Special Prosecutor is actually violating.
If you say swim size junior, so if you say swim size junior, what are you intending?
I am saying that this government doesn't want this office to exist as it is now.
I get that point.
This office was established by the NPP government, went after the NPP government. So they know that if they allow the office to continue, once this government is in power, if people will fall foul to the law and the office will go after them. Look, when this whole idea of striking this office started, you know when it started. It started only when the office went after Martin People. It was that afternoon that the majority chief and the majority leader stood up in parliament to say that the office must go. They brought a whole act of parliament to, as it were, amend and repeal this act. That is the NDC government. And it was later that they stopped. And now they have gotten somebody to now go to Supreme Court. In fact, not just somebody. They've gotten one of their own, one of their acolytes, to go to Supreme Court to still strike out the Office of Special Prosecutor. So it is the government's intention to get rid of this office so that the office will not go after its members who will fall foul to the law. And it's sad. I believe that when the NPP government brought this law, the government was very clear in its mind about the fight against corruption of political appointees. This government thinks otherwise. That is why Semsai Jr., Semsai and Mutari Bowers Jr. is bringing this action, and the Attorney General is virtually submitting to judgment, saying that they believe everything their junior has written, and that the court should strike down the Office of Special Prosecutor. This is the government.
Aren't you being unfair to them? Once this is the legal jurisprudence we practice in this country. If anybody at all can send a case to the court,
the gatekeeper. Any action against its member, watch it, will never see the light of day.
Okay, I'm grateful to you. John Dako is a member of the minority. He is the legal counsel for the Minority Caucus. An MP for Swami. Professor Kojo Appiah is Professor of International Law at the University of Ghana. Up next is Newsnight after these.
There are many reasons to connect, and it's all to put smiles on the faces of those you love.
Daddy, thanks for the tea cash, okay? I love you.
That's my daughter, Angela. Caring for my parents, that's my duty. I also get to pay my utility bills easily with Telecel Cash. And to the suppliers at my shop,
hello, sir. Telecom cash payment received right on time. Thank you.
I get to make them smile because I can pay to my suppliers' merchant numbers, even on other networks directly. My dear ones.
We keep the connection stronger when our family, friends, and business relations are happy. Live on cash, enjoy convenience, and make those who matter smile when you send them money with Telecel Cash.
Telecel, connecting energies.
Couldn't sleep at night. Mosquitoes will be whining my ears, bugging me all night long. Till I got a remedy. Now I'll be spraying them away with holy insecticide spray. I go spray them away with holy insecticide spray. When I sleep, me dana mada with holy insecticide spray.
Holy mosquito coil, holy multi-purpose insecticide spray. Dana kron kron. For bulk purchase, call 0302 681582. This advert is FDA approved.
Enjoy homemade taste of Shito always with Didi Shito. Made with carefully selected ingredients, no preservatives, no colorants.
Preservative just helps us spice. That's how we taste. Spicy we eat.
Didi Shito, if you need. This advert is FDA approved.
Hello and welcome to News Night. Relief at the pumps from tomorrow as government absorbs 2 cedi per litre on diesel and 36 pesos per litre on petrol to cushion consumers against rising global oil prices.
I would say that government has shown commitment and is willing to work with Ghanaians on this difficult path.
We'll hear from industry players on the reduction plus tell you what this will mean for your daily commute.
Also, newly recruited teachers stormed the streets of Accra in protest, citing 14 months without pay and delays in receiving staff IDs.
If May, the 4 month is not paid, we will just write to them and then notify them that we are going on sit-down strike.
We don't even have a sound mind to teach. What we are just demanding is our money because we are going through a lot.
Details as the teachers accuse government of neglecting the education sector.
In our series, When the Sea Comes Home, we'll tell you how rising sea levels and coastal erosion are tearing through the livelihoods of fishermen in Teshi in business.
IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva charges Ghana to maintain economic stability despite current global pressures from the Middle East.
In sports,
Real Madrid faced Bayern Munich in high-stakes UEFA Champions League quarter-final second leg with live commentary from the Joy Sports team tonight.
And a bit later, we're asking, is a woman who dates multiple men cheap?
Women fall to the man with a higher price. It means that women are cheap. No! If that is what you are saying. No! It means that once you have she chooses.
On the Brotherhood on Joy Prime, some men weighed in with their views. We'll share them with you here on News Night. My name is Kenneth. Gyasi.
My name is Gemma. Appiah.
You can also be a part of the conversation by sending us a WhatsApp on 055 11 11 997. Details shortly.
Tonight, Ghanaians will pay less for fuel from Thursday after government announced it will absorb 2 cedis per litre on diesel and 36 pesos per litre on petrol. The measure is meant to ease pressure from surging international prices linked to the conflict in Iran. The intervention takes effect in the new pricing window after cabinet suspended selected taxes and margins as global prices spiked due to the ongoing war. My colleague Caleb Ziblim on the research desk joins me in studio with more. Caleb, which tax handles were reduced?
Yes, Gemma. So the total taxes and margins on a litre of fuel currently amount to about 4 cedis 20 pesos. Now, taxes represent the state's revenue, while the margins mainly support the state-owned enterprises in the petroleum sector. And in this case, the government did not touch the taxes. It was only the margins that were reduced. And the total margin on a litre of fuel is about 1 cedi 37 pesos. And these margins include the primary distribution margin that goes to BOST, the BOST margin again goes to BOST, the fuel market margin, and the Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund, or the UPPF. So all of these margins were adjusted. And for petrol, each margin was reduced slightly, and the total adjustment resulted in about 36 pesos in reduction on the margin. For diesel, however, the margins were completely removed. So for diesel, they took out all the margins. And then because the total margins on diesel add up to 1 cedi 37 pesos, there was a top-up of about 63 pesos to complete the reduction. And this resulted in the 2 cedi relief that was announced today. So we know that the government also focused mainly on diesel because we got 2 cedis relief for diesel and 36 pesos for petrol. And this because most commercial transports and long-distance vehicles, industrial equipment, and manufacturing machinery all run on diesel. So if the government is focusing on inflation measures, they will focus more on diesel than on petrol.
How does this result in lower prices at the pumps?
Yes, so because of the ongoing war in the Middle East, crude oil prices have been going up. And in fact, under normal circumstances, that would have pushed petroleum prices up higher starting tomorrow, the next pricing window. But because of the relief package announced, the expected increase has largely been cushioned, and emphasis on largely. So petrol users may not see much change, but the diesel users will feel the relief more strongly. And in fact, just today, the NPA has announced the new price floors for the next window starting tomorrow. And the minimum price for petrol has moved slightly from 13 cedis 30 pesos to about 13 cedis 27 pesos. So that's a reduction of 3 pesos. While diesel has dropped more significantly from 17 cedis 10 pesos to roughly 16 cedis 10 pesos. So for diesel, we see a 1 cedi drop in the price floor, and for petrol, we see a 3 peso drop in the price floor.
How is this going to impact government books?
So because the government did not reduce the taxes on petroleum products, but they focus more on the margins, the direct impacts on government's tax revenue will be very limited. However, those margins that normally go to the state-owned enterprises, like BOST, the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation, as well as free fuel allocation for fuel supply to the security services and government appointees, these will be affected. And then after examining the monthly volumes of petrol and diesel consumption, and we estimate that the total value of the margin reduction could amount to about 600 million cedis over the 4-week period. Now, because the relief was spread across both petrol and diesel, the fiscal impact has been somewhat moderated. But overall, about 600 million cedis will be forgone within the 4-week period that this is in place. And that amount would have otherwise gone to the various state-owned enterprises within the energy sector rather than directly as government tax revenue.
Thank you very much, Caleb Ziblim from our research desk. Already, industry players are reacting. Executive Director of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, Duncan Amwa, says the move represents a significant and welcome relief for consumers.
2 cedi is, of course, a lot bigger than the 1 cedi 65, but we were proposing for both products, and so that would have been net national consumption, particularly for the white fuels or the liquid fuels. What government has cleverly done or seeking to do is to give you more on a product which constitutes, let's say, half of your net national consumption, whilst for the other half, it is not doing too much. The 36 pesos will be interested in getting the base of these analysis. But whatever the outcome, I would say that government has shown commitment and is willing to work with Ghanaians on this difficult path. I do not know, but for what I indicated, prices for tomorrow are expected to have gone up. And so I do not know if the 36 will be enough to contain the expected, increases, or the OMCs would also state their prices because the 36 pesos absorbed, they would also want to add something in order to be able to cushion Ghanaians. If that happened, possibly we would get price stability, whilst diesel could see some reductions. But for now, we only wait to see the analysis that goes with these numbers that your newsroom just put out.
You have Executive Director of COPEC, Duncan Amwa.
Richmond Roxon is the head of corporate affairs at the Energy Ministry and is joining me on the telephone lines for more on this. Welcome to the program, Richmond. Government took 2 cedis off on diesel, but the price floor indicates just a 1 cedi reduction. How do you explain this?
Let me say good evening to you. The issue of price floor is something that is dealt with by the regulator, and for us as a government, that is what the regulator uses as a guide. Government's intervention that the government has announced through the Minister of Government Communications, Honorable Felix Kwachoso. I'm sure the statement is very clear that the government has intervened, is cushioning consumers with 2 Ghana cedis to a litre when it comes to diesel, and then 0.36 pesos when it comes to petrol. Cumulatively, what it means is that you're going to see a 9 Ghana cedi reduction on diesel when it comes to a gallon, and then about 1 cedi 72 pesos when it comes to petrol. It's important that we look at the perspective and where we've come from as a country, and then where we are as we speak. When His Excellency took charge of government last year, we all know where fuel prices were for petrol and diesel, depending on the OMC you're purchasing from. You're doing averagely 16 Ghana cedis or 17 Ghana cedis, depending on where you're purchasing from. And then also with exchange rates, the cedi was around 15, 16 Ghana cedis to a dollar. And if you look at the components, the critical components that determines what the floor price will be. You look at price on the international market, you look at the strength of the CD or the CD to dollar, and then you also look at levies, margins, and taxes on petroleum products. That was managed brilliantly, was managed so well, the fiscal space, to the extent that floor prices came down by about 40% year to year if you compare. Unfortunately, in the last 8 weeks or so, if we look at what we are seeing on our geopolitics, it's had a negative impact on what the prices of fuel will be. So we moved from under 10 cedi in some instances to about 13, 14 Ghana cedis when it comes to petrol.
Richmond, I guess the question that we really want an answer to is whether or not the government relief that you just announced is included in the price floor announced by NPA.
That was what I was coming to. And so if you give me some time to explain so that you have a better perspective of it. And so if you look at where we've come from, tomorrow the new pricing window starts as we speak. The analysis done by NPA would show that petrol prices averagely will be around 13 Ghana cedis, 66 pesos. For diesel will be around 18 Ghana cedis. The government's intervention is 2 cedi on a liter on each each liter of diesel, and so we expect that reflection will show when it comes to the prices at the pump. Right. Of course, you take into consideration what the prices would have been in the next pricing window, which starts from tomorrow. And so, looking at what the price will be, and then what the intervention will be, it will give you the net effect of how much intervention the government has made.
Now, government touched margins, which are supposed to support the operations of some of the SOEs under your ministry. How will this impact their operations?
This process has not been taken lightly. It's been a very comprehensive analysis. Before the cabinet meeting, the emergency cabinet meeting, there were some analysis done by the ministers of energy, Dr. Jinapo, and then also Dr. K. Senator Force with the Minister of Finance, which was presented to cabinet. The analysis were made, and then cabinet made a decision to intervene. And so we've done stakeholder consultation, we've engaged extensively, the analysis have been done. And I can tell you that this is not a subsidy. This is an intervention by government. A subsidy ordinarily would mean the government would have to look for the funds and then to pay or support what the price would be. This, rather what is happening is that the government is taking a hit on those margins. And we've done analysis to show that even with this brilliant intervention where you move some margins around and then you take some off, these SOEs will still survive, and then there will not be a hit when it comes to the operations of the institutions that are entitled to the margins. And so be rest assured that yes, government is going to lose some revenue, but when it comes to the revenues due, it's because of this.
On the point you just made, some CSOs have been calling on the government to reduce the margins because they say it's bloated and does not more than it's supposed to. If this reduction does not negatively affect players within the sector, is government considering making it permanent then?
Oh, absolutely no. Anybody who says that these margins are over bloated should show cause why they believe that these margins are over bloated. We have, as a ministry, we've done the analysis together with the stakeholders. We've looked at what the margins are for. If you look at price distribution margin, is 26 pesos per liter. You look at fuel margin, is about 9 pesos. Bust margin is about 12 pesos. If you look at the UPPF, it's 90 pesos. In fact, some of these institutions have been requesting that these margins be increased, looking at the operations and what they need.
But when you take off these margins or reduce the margins, it's not affecting the performance or operations of these SOEs, are they?
That's why I said that the analysis has been done critically, and that's why this is for 1 month. This intervention is for a month. It's for these 2 pricing windows, because you looked at analysis critically, you looked at the operations of these SOEs, you looked at what they need to do, and then the government has decided to intervene in this. And so the decision was not taken just out of the blue. You had to be do this cautiously. Take it in consideration what every specific margin is for, what is being used for, and whether or not these SOEs will be able to operate without taking a hit.
And Richmond, per this reduction, how much are you putting in the pockets of Ghanaians within the 4-week window?
It depends on how much fuel you buy. On a liter of diesel is 2 Ghana cedi per liter. On a liter of petrol is 0.36 SOS on a liter. And so if you look at a gallon, for diesel alone, on each gallon, you're saving 9 Ghana cedi. Compare that, assuming you spend, you do maybe 10 liters or even 20 liters in a week, depending on the vehicle you drive. You're looking at averagely either 90 cedis or 180 Ghana cedis. For commercial drivers who fly this route in and out every day, you can imagine what this means for them. And that is why GPRT already has announced that the planned increase in transport fares has been rescinded because this is a significant reduction to them.
Richmond Roxon, thank you very much. He's the head of corporate affairs of the Energy Ministry. He mentioned GPRTU, so we want to find out from them if they do agree with him.
Abbas Moro is the public relations officer for GPRTU. He's on the line to us. Abbas, welcome to News 9. You were waiting for the government to announce the reliefs. You've heard the government this evening. What do you make of it?
Yeah. We were to come up with an upward adjustment. When government signal, we should give them 2 days for this very result that has come up today. We are happy they really come up with what we are expecting. We are expecting a reduction on the fuel so as to see if we can hold on to the plan upward adjustment or otherwise. And true to their work, they really come up with reduction on the fuel. We are happy for now that they've really been faithful to us when we see the way forward. So for now, our leadership has announced a hold up on any reduction. So this is the result as today we are informing every transporter to make sure we are happy. Government has really reduced the fuel prices for us. So we are not supposed to increase any fare for now. Once again, with this reduction, we are not supposed to increase any fare for now.
Thank you very much. Abbas Moro is the public relations officer for GPRT. You heard him. The transport operators are not increasing fares for now.
Let's talk education this evening because newly recruited teachers from across the country marched in Accra today over 14 months of unpaid salaries and delays in staff ID issuance, accusing government of neglecting education. The group says the situation has pushed many into severe financial distress, with some struggling to meet basic needs. National Secretary of the coalition says despite repeated consultations with the government, little has been done to remedy the situation.
We have only 2 demands. The arrears to be paid, and then about 162 of our colleagues to also receive their staff IDs. For the staff ID issue, the Deputy Finance said documents has been made, but he doesn't know why those people have not received their staff ID. So, as he was speaking to us, he said he's going to speak to the Minister for Education and know what is happening and why those people have not also received their staff IDs. So we are hoping that there are 162 people who also receive their staff IDs, and then that is all. So we were demanding for a payment plan, and then the 162 people also receive their staff ID. They've worked about 18 months without salary, and it is very painful. Per what the deputy director said, if May, the 4 months is not paid, we will just write to them and then notify them that we are going on sit-down strike. We have our plans scheduled. If this today, we did not hear this news, our next plan of action could have communicated today.
Those are the sentiments of the group calling itself newly recruited teachers, expressing on the streets of Accra earlier today. And my colleague Stephen Mensah was there for us and is joining us in the studio with more. Stephen, first, take us through the concerns of these newly recruited teachers and the routes used during today's protest.
Well, Kenneth, the central concern for these individuals will be the prolonged delay in the payment of their salaries, with many of these newly recruited teachers saying they are owed between 14 to 17 months. They argue this has pushed them into severe financial hardship, making it difficult to meet basic needs including rent, feeding and healthcare. Beyond the unpaid salaries, you're also raising concerns about the lack of a clear payment roadmap and delays in the issuance of staff IDs, which they say is partly affecting their validation on the payroll system. In terms of today's protest, the group converged early in the morning and marched through some principal streets of Accra, through Obrasport, before making their way towards the presidency and the Ministry of Finance to present their petitions.
Before man and God, it's not easy. Some of us, we are owing. Secondly, our rentals, and then let me say our landlords are also chasing us out. It's not easy. Some are even on loans, whereby they need to pay their money.
With the current situation, I borrow from my colleagues. Every month, when I receive my salary, I share it for them because I don't have any means of survival. That's the only salary I'm receiving. So things have become really difficult for us.
We don't even have a sound mind to teach. So what do you think? You, the one going to impact knowledge into the learners, if you don't have a sound mind, do you think you will be able to tell them anything good? Or will you be able to teach to their satisfaction? What we are just demanding is our money, because we are going through a lot. One of our friends just spoke. He lost the father just because. Why? He could have at least do something to save the father, but because of what? Financial difficulty, he couldn't. Now, some of us, we have children, we have families, we have parents, people depend on us, so we need this money and we need it now.
Stephen, we understand there was a disagreement between the recruited teachers and government over who should accept the petition when they got to the presidency.
Yes, and this was around 12 p.m. The standoff was at the presidency, and the teachers were insistent that their petition should be received by a senior government official or a recognized spokesperson, arguing that anything short of that will not reflect the seriousness of their concerns. And this delayed the petition and heightened tensions, but eventually the engagements were continued and it was initiated and it resolved the impasse.
And has there been any response from government yet?
Yes, following a closed-door meeting that lasted about 2 hours between the Deputy Finance Minister and leaders of the group, government has indicated that the arrears will be settled in tranches. However, the teachers say they are yet to receive a detailed and binding payment schedule, and until this is clearly communicated, they remain cautious. We can listen to Thomas Nyako Ampem, the Deputy Minister for Finance, explain the method in the disbursement of the salary arrears.
The arrears has been staggered into 4 installments. So this April, all things being equal, they will receive it. We have subsequently received a similar letter from the Ministry of Education, which was dated on the 30th of March. And so we have gone through our processes, and on the 13th of April this month, even though the finance minister is out of town, he instructed me to conclude the processes, and I wrote to controller to start the payment of your arrears. That payment will start from May. So in May you will receive 4 months of arrears. June you will receive another 4 months. July another 4 months, until the payments are concluded. We have met, and you are aware that we've issued new financial clearance for recruitment in GES and the Ghana Health Service. Our recommendation will be that the affected people should be the first priority, so that they will be put on the payroll and start receiving their salaries. We can therefore, after that, sit and discuss their arrears.
Fishermen in Teshi say they are unable to go out to sea as they used to, as rising sea levels and coastal erosion disrupt their work. What were once predictable fishing routines have become uncertain and at times too risky to attempt. They say the situation is taking food off their tables. Emmanuel Jivenu has more in Joy News' series When the Sea Comes Home.
It's early morning here in Teshi, and a group of men are pulling a wooden canoe from the sea. They hold onto a long rope, leaning back in unison and chanting as they work against the force of the waves. The sea is rough, and every step forward is resisted by the incoming tide. This has always been part of the fishing life here, but the conditions are no longer the same. Fishermen say the sea has become more aggressive and unpredictable. Fewer people go fishing compared to previous years. Rising sea levels and frequent strong tides now determine when fishermen can go to sea, and in many cases, when they must stay back. 50-year-old Moses Abeka Okain says the sea has become increasingly difficult to manage and is affecting the ability to work safely.
The sea is boisterous at the moment. When it happens like this, we move our boats and canoes further ashore, and when it comes down, we move them back. It is a big problem for us. Sometimes when this happens in the evening, when we are away, it carries the boats and destroys them completely.
Ajite Sowa has spent 22 years fishing along this coast.
These days, the sea completely destroys our boats and renders them useless.
Experts say what is happening along Ghana's coast reflects a broader coastal challenge. Africa's Special Envoy on Climate Change, Dr. Samuel Doche, underscores the impact of coastal erosion and rising sea levels on livelihoods.
Their livelihood depends on the sea. So if get up in the morning and the sea becomes very boisterous, you cannot go. So what it means is that once you are not able to go, it means that that day you have to go hungry. It means that that day, if your child is sick, you can't send the child to the hospital. It means that if you have to get money from your fishing to pay school fees, it means that your child has to stay home. Some children, including their parents, will be subjected to a kind of a mental torture.
For these fishermen at Teshi, the sea remains their main source of livelihood, but the changing conditions are making that livelihood uncertain. They are calling for practical solutions that will protect the coastline and allow them to continue their work under safer conditions. Emmanuel Jivenu, Joy News, Teshi, Accra.
You're still listening to Newsnight here on Joy 99.7 FM. Here are some of the messages you've been sending to our WhatsApp platform. Hamdan Al-Hassan from Nyohini South says, this verdict is not surprising. Even the OSP himself knows this basic fact. And this one from Kwiku in Latabioka, she says, reduction of fuel prices on diesel is to encourage galamsey. All machinery used for galamsey use diesel. We are all watching. Musa Abattoir at Aswase in Kumasi says proactive leadership demands a forward-looking approach to governance, and that is exactly what President Mahama and his economic managed team represent. Today, a tough decision has been taken to cushion Ghanaians, especially in the face of global shocks arising from tensions such as the Russia, America, Israel, and Iran conflict. And this is August Kwabla Kotoka Dovlo from Keta in the Volta region says, I want to advise President Mahama's economic management team to restore toll booths before remove the e-levy and taxes from the petroleum products. I also want to advise the transport owners to have patience for the president. And there are more messages you are sending to our WhatsApp platform. Nana Ekuyamoa Boatin from Ablekuma Central says, this government is only interested in populism. You claim that you've reduced diesel by 2 cedis, yet petrol prices have only been reduced by a paltry 36 pesos. What was the thinking that went into this ridiculous decision? If petrol had been reduced by 1 cedi, it would have made more sense to me. Those are some of the messages that you've been sending to our WhatsApp platforms. Keep the messages coming in on 055 11 11 997. Let's bring you more stories this evening.
The Member of Parliament for Damongo, Samuel Abdullahi Jinapo, has delivered a damning verdict on the progress of NDC government's Operation Recover or Loot. The oral agenda became a major anti-corruption campaign tool for the NDC during the 2024 election campaign period, with which they promised to retrieve all alleged stolen public resources from former government appointees. But over a year into the administration, any former government appointee is yet to be successfully prosecuted under the oral move. Speaking on the Post, the Damongo MP raised concerns over the effectiveness of the initiative, accusing government of using it as an empty campaign tool to win their way into power.
We had this situation where, in a run-up to the 2024 election, this Operation Recover or Loot was almost like the topmost, if you took out the 24-hour economy. It was almost like the topmost commitment that the opposition NDC made to the Ghanaian people, and really did a very good job, and I must commend them for that. Did quite a good job in terms of the public relations, in terms of the communication, and in terms of the persuasion in convincing the population that somehow there was some grand looting, right? There was some grand looting in the government of President Akufo-Addo, and that there was, to quote them, there was state capture, and that Akufo-Addo and his cronies were capturing Ghana, and that there was some grand looting and corruption was all over the place, and that if they came into office, they would recover all loot. You know, fast forward, they are in government for 1 year, a few months, and you will agree, I believe most Ghanaians will attest to it, there have not been any major expose, prosecution or conviction or evidence-based conclusion which suggests that this grand looting and state capture truly did happen. And that has become a matter of enormous public discussion and controversy. And that is a fact.
You had the MP for Damongo, Samuel Abdullahi Jinapo.
It's now time for business, and Winston Take is here with the latest.
Now in business, IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva charges Ghana to maintain economic stability despite current global pressures from the Middle East. The business news on News 9 is brought to you by MTN, Kingdom Books and Stationery, Synthes Tanks, and Pepsodent Charcoal and Herbal.
Charlie, trim I'm nice. I get some serious meeting. Allah, motion. But Charlie, no credit today. Oh, but you relax. More day.
Hey, what funny.
Yes, so I borrow small, sort myself out, I pay back. We move. Spoil there. Ah, Charlie, you sure say you dey pay back? Yes, so that anytime somebody else they need them, Momo day. Be like I for can't borrow some. Hey, you this boy. Don't go there and disgrace yourself. Allah motion.
Responsible borrowing be the real flexo for today's needs and tomorrow's dreams. Borrow, sort them, pay back. Momo day.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kingdom Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom.
Kingdom. And my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first port of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Takweje, Osu near the Osu Cemetery, Temania Community 4, Takradi opposite Fijai Maze Plaza, Cape Coast University Bookshop, Spintex Road near Absa Bank, Atomic Center Point Mall, Winneba University Campus, KNUST, the University Bookshop, and Santasi in Kumasi. You can also visit our shop online, www.kingdomstoreonline.com. Hurry while stock lasts. For further inquiries, contact us on 050-162-0810 or 0302-764-101. Email info@kingdomgh.com. Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited, where quality and affordability is assured. Terms and conditions apply.
Cast your mind back to 2022. The prices were rising. The stress was high. Every liter of fuel felt like a sacrifice. Do you remember who stepped forward first? When others were comfortable with high prices, Star Oil chose you. We cut our own profits so you could keep your AC on, keep your engines running, and keep your life moving without the heavy burden. We gave you room to breathe when things felt tight. Because of you, our star savers, we became #1. Today, the pumps are a battleground. Others are finally cutting prices because they have to. But Star Oil, we do it because we want to. Don't just chase a price, remember a friendship. We were there for you then, and with new innovations coming your way, we are here for you now. Star Oil, still quality and affordable fuels for all.
If you want quality, this be where you belong. Hey, tough, hey, strong. Oh, gonna shout and sing the song. When the sun they hot, syntax no break. When the rain they fall, still no shake. Builders they choose and plumbers they prove. Any project you they start.
Sasso, sasso, se come tonton preko. Sasso, sasso, se come tonton preko. Edrana drumming ya buseshe. Yeah, how can see any malaria? Minya me pone me sasso spray. Every mosquito study run away. Come on, tonton preko. Sasso, sasso, mi se come tonton preko. Come on, tonton preko. Sasso, come tonton preko. Nani sham ne die, demo stronko.
This advert is FDA approved.
Because the wet swans, not because we love the water, but because the water never lets us go.
This May, in celebrating Arise 2026 International Justice Mission in partnership with Image Bureau, April Communications and the National Theatre presents The Wet Ones, a story of pain, ignorance, deception, mystery, and struggle. For one day only, catch this theatrical masterpiece on Saturday, 2nd May at 4 p.m. at the National Theatre. The Wet Ones. Register for your free invite at www.imagebureaugh.com or visit IJM Ghana on Facebook, IG, and X. The Wet Ones. Directed by Derek Sawano. Saturday, 2nd May at 4 p.m. only at the National Theatre. Supported by Niplant Car Rentals, Graphic Communications Group, Joy FM, Hits FM, Joy Prime TV, and proudly brought to you by International Justice Mission.
Welcome to the business news on News 9, brought to you by MTN, Kingdom Books and Stationery, Sinter's Tanks and Pepsodent Charcoal and Herbal. My name is Winston Taki. Let's settle for the details. The IMF Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, has charged Ghana to maintain economic stability despite the current conflict in the Middle East, which could threaten recent gains. Speaking at a news conference in Washington, D.C., USA, on the fund's global policy response, Madame Georgieva noted that the government must watch before it acts.
Understandably, governments would like to help businesses and people hit by the exogenous supply shock. My advice? Look before you leap. On monetary policy, for countries where monetary policy was well calibrated before the shock and expectations remain anchored, wait and see is the right approach. In other countries, early policy action may be required. On fiscal policy, we have been warning for some time that public debt is constraining fiscal space. I want to stress what is different this time in comparison to COVID is the cumulative impact of shock upon shock. It has pushed debt to dangerously high levels.
Meanwhile, the IMF has announced up to $50 billion fund to assist countries that are badly hit by recent development in the Middle East, which the fund says Ghana can access. Madame Georgieva advised developing countries to move fast to access the financial support to stabilize economies. Still, from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund has revealed that Ghana's banking sector has been gradually recovering over the past year. It, however, warned that non-performing loans and sovereign exposure remain high. This was contained in the IMF Technical Assistance Report on the Bank of Ghana. The following report has more.
Following the 2022 Domestic Debt Exchange Program, the report pointed out that banks incurred significant losses on domestic government bonds holdings, which weakened their capital positions. However, over the past year, capital adequacy has improved, reaching about 18% of risk-weighted assets as of August 2025, close to pre-DDEP levels. According to the IMF report, the recovery in capital and profitability has been partly supported by increased holdings of high-yielding Bank of Ghana bills. Despite some improvement, the private sector non-performing loans ratio remains elevated at 20.8%, and banks continue to be highly exposed to domestic sovereign. The report said, while credit to the private sector has been constrained by high interest rates and credit risk, it is now expected to pick up from a low base.
That was a news desk report. Away from that, the Ghana Revenue Authority is urging taxpayers to use the month of April to file their tax returns to enjoy the full benefit of tax payments. Speaking to journalists on the celebration of April as Tax Education and Good Governance Month, Commissioner for Domestic Tax Revenue Division at the GRA, Dr. Martin Ayamborigas, urged taxpayers to use the period to honor their obligations in order to claim tax reliefs.
If you were doing business and paying your taxes on a quarterly basis, the tax would have already been in the system. So the system will tell you that, okay, this is a total amount of tax that you are supposed to pay for the year based on the information that you have inputted. This is the tax that you have already paid. Then the difference is what you are supposed to pay. Let me also add that it is possible that upon filing your return, you could also have a refund. And one of the benefits of filing your returns is that it enables you to get a tax refund from the Ghana Revenue Authority, which we do. So assuming that because income tax is paid on a quarterly basis and in advance, probably you might have paid more than what your actual income requires you to pay. So the system will let you know that you have overpaid your tax. And in that case, you can make an application to the Commissioner General for a refund. And I want to use this medium to say that, yes, we do refund taxes to people who duly qualify for it. And I encourage people to file their returns and claim any refund that they have if they have paid more than what they are supposed to pay.
Dr. Martin Ayamboriga is Commissioner for Domestic Tax Revenue Division at the Ghana Revenue Authority. Now to the telecom sector, the American Tower Corporation's Ghanaian subsidiary has prevailed in an international arbitration against Airtel Tigo Ghana over unpaid fees for telecommunications tower services. This brings to a formal closure of the contractual dispute in Ghana's telecom sector for several years. The following report has more.
The case was heard before the International Chamber of Commerce Court of Arbitration,
The outcome arrives at a delicate moment as Airtel Tigo rebranded AT Ghana following the government's takeover as it undergoes restructuring. The arbitration is the legal endpoint of a debt that accumulated over several years. Airtel Tigo, formed in 2017 through the merger of Bharti Airtel's and Millicom's Ghanaian operations, rallied on ATC Ghana's tower infrastructure for its network coverage across the country. Under industry standard tower sharing arrangements, mobile operators pay tower companies, known as tower costs, recurring fees for access to mass, power supply and related services. Payments to ATC fell into arrears, and by the time the current Communications Minister Samuel Nate George addressed Parliament in March 2025, the figure owed to ATC alone had reached 1.5 billion cedis, a proportion of a total debt loan on AT Ghana's books that the minister put at over 3.5 billion cedis, equivalent to approximately $225 million at prevailing exchange rates.
That was a news desk report, and that is bring us to the end of the Joy Business News on News 9. My name is Winston Taki. Ken, I'm sure sports is coming up next. What do you say?
Exactly. Thank you very much, Winston. There's a famous UEFA Champions League anthem. That means that there's some football match happening on the continent of Europe this evening.
Yeah, with the big one being Bayern Munich hosting Real Madrid.
Yeah.
At the Allianz Arena in Germany.
The clash of the titans.
Yeah. Madrid lost the first one. I had to remind you in case you wanted to forget.
I know.
And you think you can do the comeback?
Of course. I told you yesterday that Barcelona was going to win. But what I didn't tell you was who was going to qualify.
Yeah. He said Barcelona were going to win, and they didn't win. So are you going
I
to
was
go
wrong
for?
in that
So are you going to go for Bayern
but
tonight?
Barca won, did they not?
Yeah, they won, but they still were eliminated.
So I wasn't wrong in my prediction.
I'm wondering why this drama.
Yeah, because anytime we come here, he wants to shade Chelsea because I'm a Chelsea fan. He's a Madrid fan. I like Madrid, but I don't know. Madrid and Chelsea usually don't beef. Chelsea, our beef is always with Barca. But Ken, I don't know. I don't know what we've done to him. Which team are you supporting today, Jawa?
I think I'll go with Real Madrid.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Ken. Okay, I have nothing to say. Alright, so it's a massive European night as Bayern Munich hosts Real Madrid in the second leg of the UEFA Champions League quarter-final clash at the iconic Allianz Arena in Germany. Now, the Bavarians carry a slender 2-1 advantage from the first leg thanks to goals from Harry Kane and Luis Diaz, putting them in the driving seat heading into tonight's decisive encounter. But they can never write off Real Madrid, and the 15-time Champions League winners will be pushing for yet another famous comeback on the European stage. Now, standing in their way, however, is a confident and informed Bayern Munich, ready to defend their lead and make the home advantage count. Now, before I came to studio, I think the lineups are already out.
Yeah, they are.
So for Bayern Munich, they have Manuel Neuer in post, Stanisic, Pamecano, Jonathan Tah, Kendrick Lamar. They have Kimmich, Pavlovic, Olise, Gnabry, Luis Diaz, and Harry Kane. And for Real Madrid, you want to go to the Real Madrid lineup for me? Since you're the Madrid fan.
Okay, so they have Vinicius Jr., Mbappe. Up front, they have Valverde, Bellingham, Diaz, Mendy, Rudiger, Militao, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and then they have Lunin in goal today.
All right, so everyone have their full set. So we are ready for a blockbuster tonight. And there'll be live commentary by the Joy Sports team at 7 p.m. on Hits 103.9 FM.
Thank you very much for bringing us the latest in sports. Let's do politics, because the opposition MPP has launched a scathing attack against the government, describing the arrest of its members as politically motivated and intended to divert the attention of the public from its failures. During a press conference in Accra, the MPP said the handling of the Sunyani East communication officer of the party and his subsequent remand are unacceptable and unwarranted. The following report has more.
Of arresting critics is a clear indication that the government has become intolerant. The party described the arrest of the Sunyani East communication officer as baseless and without any justifiable cause. Justin Kojo from Pong as General Secretary.
Let it be on record that the NDC government led by President Mahama has become so intolerable to the extent that it does not welcome divergence or criticism of its government.
He also criticized the Inspector General of Police, Christian Tete-Yohunu, accusing him of presiding over what the party calls a pattern of arbitrary Rambo-style arrests targeting opposition figures.
It is sad that the IGP Yohunu has created an office whose duty is just to be combing around social media to identify people who criticize the government. And in midnight, in early hours, will go and arrest these people.
He also says,
if they know how angry Ghanaians are with the disappointment that they have about this government, the promises that they made to Ghanaians when they were in opposition, the promises to create jobs for good people of Ghana, the promises to pass the LGBTQ bill within 3 months, the promises to increase the price of cocoa.
National organizer of the party, Henry Nanabuachi, accused the decision of the judge who remanded Baba Amando into custody as allegedly politically influenced.
They did not even put any application. Yet, Justice Joseph Kunsun, you could see that he had a predetermined mind. He had a political mind. And unjustifiably remanded Baba Amando to reappear on the 20th. Under the guise of interfering police investigation. This is even more absurd.
The MPP calls on the government and security agencies to uphold the rule of law and ensure fairness, warning that such actions, if unchecked, could undermine Ghana's democratic principles. For Joy News, Fatal Bayaga, Accra.
The Center for Climate Change and Food Security is warning that the ongoing destruction of the Dodoa forest for a proposed market threatens the environment, history and identity of the people of Dodoa. The group says for years, community members, young people and institutions have invested effort in planting thousands of trees in the forest, but much of that work is now being lost. In a press statement, the group said heavy machines have moved into the area, clearing portions of the forest to make space for the relocation of market traders and the construction of a new market. My colleague Ramat Bashir joins me in studio with more on this. Ramat, what exactly has the center observed on the ground?
Gemma, the center reports that heavy-duty machines have already entered the forest and then they have begun clearing sections of land. Now, according to the group, these activities are directly linked to plans to relocate market traders and construct a new market within the forest zone. They describe the development as alarming, particularly given the scale of tree loss already recorded.
And why is the construction of a market in the forest such a major concern to them?
Well, the group maintains that the forest plays a very critical role in climate regulation and conservation, especially with the community people as well. So losing it, especially at a time when Ghana is grappling with climate change and environmental degradation, could worsen heat conditions and destroy natural habitats.
Ramat Bashir with excerpts of the statement from the Center for Climate Change and Food Security.
Let's take you back to our WhatsApp console where Kwesi in Kaswa says, what sort of insensitivity is this on the part of this government? How would you hold up someone's salary for 14 months? How do you expect them to work on empty stomach? Francis in Accra says, I hope Ghanaians are seeing the effect of voting for a good political party, unlike the MPP, as MPP and its agents were calling for 1 Ghana cedi off a litre. The NDC government rather took 2 Ghana cedis off. What will they say again? NDC is the party for Ghanaians in the next 20 years. Those are more messages we're getting from our WhatsApp console this evening. And in Ghana, every flick of a switch counts. Millions of kilowatts of electricity are wasted every day. Power that comes from fossil fuels and warms the planet. Across the country, hotels are turning to smart card systems to cast waste. insert a card and the lights, air conditioners and TVs come on, remove it, and everything switches off automatically. At one of these hotels, Modern City Hotel, the general manager, Abigail Ajay, says this small change isn't just saving money, it is helping the hotel save energy and take part in a cleaner, greener future. Mahmoud Nuruddin has more in today's Climate Evidence.
As Ghana's demand for electricity grows, so does the pressure on the power system and on the climate. Large share of Ghana's electricity still comes from fossil fuels, adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. But inside hotel rooms in Tamale, a small piece of plastic is helping fight climate change. At Modern City Hotel, a simple smart card system is changing how electricity is used. Guests insert the card to turn on lights, air conditioners, and TVs, and when they leave, the system automatically powers everything down. General Manager of Modern City Hotel, Abigail Ajay, says this small automation has made a huge difference.
So I think that this card system has been very helpful to us, because previously we used to buy electricity or prepaid or whatever worth about 115,000 cedis a month. But then I think from our checks, we realized that when we brought in this system, it has significantly reduced electricity to about, let's say, 120,000 a month.
I spoke to Professor Samuel Jemfi, Director of the Regional Center for Energy and Environmental Sustainability at the University of Energy and Natural Resources. Professor Jemfi says hotel rooms are simple, but households are more complex.
I guess residential energy consumption is more complex, but the dynamics are more complex than we have in the commercial facilities like hotels, shopping malls, and things like that. And so the energy use, behaviors in the residential sector are very wide.
PhD student in sustainable energy engineering at the university, William Asamoah, is researching how smart systems can be adapted for local homes.
How we can build systems so that with your phone you can set rules on who is having access to what gadget or what socket.
But technology must fit local realities.
But the informal setup or Ghanaian household, traditional household, where people are occupying the room, while some are living, some are occupying, it becomes very difficult to implement such a card, and it will defeat the purpose.
Technology alone is not enough. Everyday habits matter too. For a shop owner in Tamale, Yusuf Husseini, many high electricity bills come from carelessness. The new meters continue to run whenever electrical appliances are switched on, even when those gadgets are not actively in use. A report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
This story is brought to you by Joy News in partnership with CDKN Ghana, University of Ghana Center for Climate Change and Sustainability Studies, with funding from Claire R4I Opportunities Fund.
In our light story for today, we ask the question about whether or not women who date multiple men are cheap. On the Brotherhood show on Joy Prime, some men share their opinions. Listen.
Women fall to the man with a higher price.
It means that women are cheap.
No!
If that is what you are saying.
No!
It means that once you have it,
Once you have
no!
what she
what she wants
from you or what she wants.
She chooses.
That's
because
fine.
you see, if you no get what this guy get, you go want. You can you call her cheap? She won't choose you. She won't allow you to even touch her.
Per what Alvin is saying, see, if a lady should walk in here,
yes,
and she's looking good, and she says that's Zil, let's go and do something. The probability that I'll go very high.
But are you sure?
But
You guys really cheap.
But you guys, the way you put it, let me learn. If there are 4 ladies here, and let's say Alvin walks in and says, I want to have sex with, let's say, one of the ladies, the lady can say no.
But
the lady can say no, but in the ladies, in the other side, if the girl walks in and I say no, one of us go and do it.
But it's the same with the let me hear from you.
There are instances where I've had ladies to approach.
Let's just do something
without feeling.
I'll be like, Charlie, chips out.
Hey, Charlie,
honestly, I'm just telling I'm telling you the facts, bro. This very. This very.
Very, very interesting
indeed.
Conversation there, which divides opinion, obviously. And that's it for News 9 this evening. My name is Kenneth. Gyasi.
I am Gemma Appiah.
And don't forget to do the 2 this evening. Brush your teeth with Pepsodent. Right after News 9, though, we have Strong and Sassy, and Akofa is here. What are we talking about this evening?
So today we have our guest, Amtu Ekumfiamea. She's sharing, her survival story with us right here on the show. And so we're hoping that our listeners will tune in and pick a thing or two from it as well.
It's a very sensitive topic.
It is a very sensitive
You should
one.
pay attention to it.
Absolutely.